I, 17 female, live with my dad, stepmom, and my half-brother, 15 male. My biological mom dumped me when I was just a few months old and surrendered her rights to me. A few years later, she overdosed and passed away. I don't know anybody from my mom's side of the family. My dad and my mom weren't married or anything. I was just the product of a high school mistake. 2 years later, my dad married my stepmom and had a new kid with her. I learned by the age of 7 that my stepmom wasn't my real mom. This made me sad because I couldn't do anything to change the fact. I could feel myself being treated differently to my half-brother by my stepmom and my dad. It did kind of make sense. Because of this, I grew curious about my mom's side of the family and was eager to get to know them. About a year and a half ago, I connected with my mom's sister, who reached out to me via Facebook. She provided me with pictures of my mom and everything. I was ecstatic to have found her. She told me that my grandparents were dead, but that she had 2 sons, 7 male and 3 male, who were my cousins. We began to message and call each other constantly. I did the same with my cousins. I loved them, and it was wonderful to have found them. My aunt had also apologized many times for not having reached out sooner. About 6 months ago, my aunt lost her job. She had health problems, which made it hard for her to find another one. She was also a single mom and needed to have flexible hours. Because of this, I sent them money, around $200 each week. I've been working since I was 14 years old. My dad and stepmom had made it clear at this point that I wasn't getting anything except for food. They told me that they had to save for my half-brother's future. Anyway, because I had been working for a while and I was still working, I could afford to send that much. I have a fund set aside for my future, college, or whatever path I'll end up choosing. I was happy to help. It was nice to have a family who really cared about me and was interested in my life. One day, just out of sheer boredom, I did a reverse image search of my aunt. I came across a Facebook and Instagram account with the same picture but different names. She was also put down as living in a different location than she had told me. In fact, it looked like she lived in the same state as me. When I saw all of this, I was super confused. After some digging, I realized that my aunt was a sham. My accounts on social media were blocked by those accounts that I had just found. Weirdly, my stepmom was one of her Facebook friends. I also found out that they were following each other on Instagram. But my dad and my stepmom had never been interested when I'd told them about reconnecting with my aunt. They never even knew each other's names, to my knowledge. I realized that I had been played. I don't think I'd ever been so upset in my life. I confronted my aunt, who immediately broke down and told me that she was sorry. She told me that she'd never wanted to do this and that she recognized that it was a cruel thing to do. Apparently, my dad and my stepmom put her up to it. She owed them a massive favor, but she refused to specify why that was. They had approached her and asked her to con me to get my money. They had told her that it would be going to their kids' college fund because they were falling behind and wanted to fast-track their goal. As proof, she sent me screenshots of my stepmom asking her about the con. I am so shocked by the whole situation. I just can't stop crying. I want to leave, but I have nowhere else to go. Also, the whole situation has severely drained my savings. What am I meant to do? Please help. Update. Thanks all for reading and for your replies. So, I sat my parents down and played them the screen recording of the aunt confessing to what was really happening. They were shocked and said that the woman was lying. They told me that I was a fool for believing her. So then I showed them the screenshots of the message between her and my stepmom, confirming the whole thing. I watched the color drain from their faces. I told them that extortion of a minor is a felony. Thanks guys for cluing me up on this. I would never have thought of it on my own. I said that I had given my aunt $4,300 in 7 months and that they had better return it or I'd be calling the cops on them. When they realized that I wasn't bluffing, they started panicking and blabbering. They said it wasn't extortion and in fact I was just paying back the money I owed them for raising me since I was young. They said that I was being ungrateful and selfish, as well as telling me to think of the future of the child they shared together. If they didn't have me, all the money would have gone to their child's future. I just told my stepmom that she should go get a job if she cared that much. Anyway, the tactic worked, and the next day my dad deposited the money into my bank account. They've all been giving me the cold shoulder since, and it hasn't been the best environment to live in. But to be honest, I think I'm okay with that. On another note, my aunt is still in contact with me and obviously feels awful about what she was part of. As a result, she has volunteered to help me locate my real family as a way to repent. I'm looking forward to moving out as soon as I can, and maybe even reconnecting with my real family. OP, I'm sorry your dad and stepmom are bad people and parents. It's fine if your stepmom isn't your biological mother, but why does she have to be so cruel to you? I'm glad you got back your hard-earned money. They had zero right to take that money from you. Especially not that way. They literally conned you by using your weakness. And let's not mention the fact that you're a minor. I hope you'll be able to get away from these people soon. You shouldn't stay with them any more than you have to. I also hope you find your real family and that they treat you well. Good luck, OP. Story 2. My wife and I moved to a rural destination last year, and we're lucky enough that we have a lake as well as land to call our own now. Naturally, the grandkids went nuts about it, and they loved the new area to explore. As a housewarming gift to our kids and their grandkids, we invited everybody for a huge camp out last year. We paid for everything, including flights. Our home is big enough that everyone got more or less their own rooms. With a few kids having to share, people were happy. The only two people to ruin the trip were my daughter's new stepkids, 15 and 16-year-old girls who had a disgusting attitude the entire trip. It was the first time I had ever met them. My daughter and son-in-law had married abroad that year, and my wife couldn't travel due to sickness, so we both stayed home. The kids called my wife a fat, lazy slob because she couldn't take them into town one day. They broke expensive tools and priceless sentimental items inside the house. They kept sneering they didn't want to be there, etc. The entire 2 weeks was hell, not only for my extended family, but for myself. They were cruel to the younger children, disrespectful to everybody other than my son-in-law, etc. My daughter and her husband kept insisting that it was teething problems and that the kids really did want to be there. Because they live far away, we haven't seen the two kids again. However, I have seen my daughter and son-in-law. Again, we can't travel due to my wife's sickness, but we have invited the family over for a day visit, and they declined to bring the kids. Well, this year we are doing a camp again, but for my other grandchildren, I have excluded my daughter and the children. I didn't beat about the bush. I simply said that they were disrespectful to my darling wife, and they had broken an incredibly sentimental item that my wife and I still sometimes cry over. My daughter has tried to rally her brothers and sisters to be on her side, but they have stayed out of it. My wife is on the verge of relenting, but I feel we ought to stay strong. OP, it sounds like the girls were doing everything they could to make it clear they didn't want to be there, and were trying to make everyone else as miserable as them in retaliation, and their parents did nothing to stop them. Just because they're teenagers doesn't mean they get to act so rudely and get away with it. Your daughter is trying to force an image of a happy family, but they're clearly not. Maybe they can visit individually at another time after they've apologized to you first, of course. But right now, they've proven that they can't be trusted around other children or in your home. Your daughter cannot force these trips and pretend everything is fine. Hold your ground. Now for some comments. Why isn't your daughter mortified and dealing with this with her husband? Formal apologies, taking steps to remedy, making an alternate plan like we will get a hotel, and if the kids step out of line, husband will take them to the hotel. I vividly recall the first big trip I took with my stepdaughters to see my family, and they pulled stuff like this. 12 and 13 years old. 2 weeks of hell and rudeness, breaking things and lying. I told my husband I was not taking another trip with them until he got them under control. Encourage your daughter to come on her own. The kids aren't allowed. Not the a-hole. OP, in this case, it's not the girls who are the problem. The problem is your daughter and son-in-law. The girls have made it absolutely clear that they don't want to go on this trip. They will be miserable and will make everyone else miserable. You agree they should not go on this trip. Your daughter and son-in-law are trying to force you and their kids to do something none of you want to. I don't doubt that the girls will retaliate by being assholes if they are forced to go on this trip. You need to tell your daughter and son-in-law to get it together and tell them that it's not just against your wishes. They also need to listen to what their kids are telling them.